Hello, everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and oh man, do we have another great show for you? It's so easy. I say it every week. You get a great author, you get a great book. So easy. It's awesome. This week, I have Martha Brown, former CEO, Tipperary Inc. Furniture top. I mean, she just crushed it. 70 million in sales, grew the company to 170 people. Book is fantastic. It's called It's On You. Now, don't let that title frighten you because it's not what she wants you to do, but it's the secondary title is Empowerment for Leaders Seeking the Highest Level of Personal Satisfaction and Corporate Success. Folks, it's a great book. I'm telling you, if you're an emerging leader, if you're an emerging CEO, if you ever want to be one, let's say you're nowhere close. Let's say you're in college right now. Go, man, someday I want to be a CEO. Here is the book for you. It's that good. I'm just going to make a couple comments because here's what I took from this book. I found that Martha said three things to me. This is how she spoke to me when I was reading this book. You know, you've got to be strong, you got to be accountable, and you got to be compassionate as a leader. Those were the three things I pulled out of there. And you know, strength, accountability, and by the way, when I say strong, I don't mean mean. I mean, you're responsible for the decisions that you make. You're gonna have to be strong. When I mean accountable, I mean that you got to hold your people accountable, but you got to hold yourself accountable. And you got to get your people to self-accountability. And when I mean compassionate, it's probably pretty easy to be compassionate with your customers, maybe somewhat compassionate with your vendors, but how compassionate are with your people? That's the thing that spoke to me about this book as I read this book. And it made me think to myself, can I be those things when I lead others? From a coaching standpoint or whatever I do, am I being that way? Am I demonstrating strength with accountability and compassion? And we're going to talk about that because it's part of what her book is all about. And I believe in this book, and I think it's a great book for you. And so appreciate everybody tuning in wherever you're at and wherever you're watching us from. DBTV. We are now on Apple TV. So we just started that. That's coming in. So we are now on Apple TV. So all the DBTV listeners, thanks for joining us on Apple TV. And of course, you know, we're on Coast to Coast Radio. Thank you all, everybody listening. Tell your station managers, gosh, we love the show. And of course, podcast. Before we get to Martha, let's do what we do every week. We're 4-part people. We're physical, mental, emotional, spiritual people. And the fact of the matter is we have to be growing in each of those areas every single day. Because if we're not growing, we're dying because we never stay static. So I have you evaluate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 5 being average in each one of these areas. So for example, when it comes to, let's say, the physical, how are you doing when it comes to getting enough exercise, eating right, getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, going to the doctor appointments that you need to do to take care of yourself? How would you evaluate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, 10 being it doesn't get any better? Now, listen, if your number's low, I don't want you to feel bad about yourself. That's not what we're here to do. What I want you to think about is, all right, if it's a 2 or 3 or something lower, what can you do? Think of it as a starting place that I can improve from, right? And by the way, don't try to go from a 2 to a 10. It never works, right? We want to do slow progress. So maybe go from a 2 to 2.5, right? Just do something small. Start small. You know, maybe exchange the soda for a bottle of water today. That would be a nice choice, right? You know, if you're a chips fan, well, maybe get your hand out of the chips and roll those up and put those away. Whatever it may be, start small, but let's make progress. All right, that's your first number. Second number is your mental intellectual number. You know what? You have to be responsible for your own mental intellectual growth and your wisdom and knowledge and understanding of not only yourself, but the world around you and your career and whatever it is. I think books and listening to books are a great way to do that. And I encourage you to do it. And I encourage my clients to do it. It's On You is a fabulous way to start. And if you're a book listener and say, I'm not a big reader, I'm a book listener. Okay. Here's what I tell my clients. Listen to the book, but before you get out of the car, I want you to write down one thing you're going to take action on that you listen to. One thing. And when you read a book, you know, if you read a half a chapter or a whole chapter, right? And this one is easy because these chapters are not real long, and she's got action steps that are fantastic in here. Take one of those steps and say, I'm going to do that. Because your intellectual growth doesn't come from just the reading. It comes from taking the reading and putting it into action. So on a scale of 1 to 2, how would you say you're doing? Third area is emotional. Real simply, it's 2 pieces. How well are you able to control your emotions under stress and pressure? And then the second piece is how well are you able to tune in to the emotions of other people and understand them? Right? I mean, listen, we all say, oh, I'm in control of my emotions. Can I tell you, I make a confession. I like to believe that I'm really in control of my emotions, but I got a confession to make. I was on the phone with a vendor trying to use my airline points to schedule a trip. And we had a little bit of a problem in translation with each other. I didn't do so good, honestly. And it really took me to go, you know what? You're better than that. And so in the middle of the conversation, I had to get better because I wasn't good. I wasn't under emotional control. Right? And I wasn't tuning in because I assumed that the person on the other end was probably pretty frustrated with me. And so that means I wasn't tapping into their emotions either. Right? And it requires both of those things for emotional peace. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say you're doing? And then finally, the fourth area is the spiritual area. And listen, I know that there's some about you. God, I'm just not a spiritual person. Yeah, you are. You remove the physical, mental, and emotional part of you, you're spiritual. You live by faith every day. You wake up, sip your coffee, believing it's not poison. You push the button in your car, believing it's going to start. You walk across the street when it says walk, believing no car is going to hit you. You make plans for the future, even though they haven't happened. You believe they will. That's faith, right? But then what brings you back to centeredness in the midst of your chaos? What can bring you joy in the midst of pain? Is it God? Is it nature? Is it meditation? Is it something else? The big question is, how's it working for you? Then what do you got to do to change it? Those 4 areas, like the air in the tires, your car. One tire is a little bit too low. What happens? It's hard to drive the car. If all 4 tires are too low, you know what happens? You're going to ruin the car over the course of time. So we want to bring our tires up to the right height. And speaking of someone who does that, her name is Martha Brown. She's a visionary leader and former chief executive officer of Tipperary Sales Incorporated. That's the lazy boy in the Southeast. She's a proven retail industry executive and franchise expert. She has translated her exceptional passion for the development of people into transformed companies, cultures, and leaders. She has also secured Tipperary Sales Incorporated as one of the most successful retail furniture companies in the U.S., credited with growing company to a team of 170 employees and exceeding revenue in excess of $70 million. And we are so fortunate to have her here on A New Direction. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Martha Brown. Martha, welcome to A New Direction.
Thanks, Jay. What a pleasure. It's a real honor to be here. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Listen, I want to just get this out at the front because I want to just say this about you. You had said in this book right away that you decided to write the guidebook that you always dream of having. And we appreciate this. And I believe it is the book that people need to have. And you even say that this book has been designed for the aspiring leader or CEO to find their way home and find their way from here to there. And I have to tell you, it is all that and more. And so I want to dig into right away and get people going here, because in the chapter entitled, We Get the Teams We Deserve, you said everything that happens in the company or within your team, whether victory or failure, is ultimately on you. If your team is dysfunctional or your team is not a team, that's on you. Everything that exists within your organization at this very moment starts with you. Talk to us about We Get the Teams We Deserve.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think of all the tenets in the book, and it was really something that I wanted to start with. It's hard for CEOs to reckon with that. It's hard for us to say, okay, we've got a department, or we have, this part of the company that's not, it's not prosperous. And let me go look at the people in that department and figure out what they're doing wrong, essentially. And very few CEOs want to start with the step of, well, how have I influenced that? Because we don't become CEOs by not knowing how to problem solve. That's something that we can do in our sleep. Um, and we're so reticent to take that step back and to look at ourselves first and to say, okay, well, I can go in there and I can talk to the leader of that department and I can say, what exactly is the struggle here? And I can learn, I can listen, I can hear, I can be compassionate. I can ask them what their plans of action are to remedy the situation. And then I have to stop and I have to ask myself the same questions. What have I potentially done to do or not do the right thing to give that leader or that department the resources they need, the support they need, the vision that they need, because if it's misty in the pulpit, it's cloudy in the pews, right? So that's something that, leaders, C-suite especially, it's hard for us to think, okay, well, wow, I could have been complicit in something here. And it's a starting point, and if we keep doing it with ourselves, we will find there's more low hanging fruit out there, things that we could be doing better every single day. And most of it is around communication.
Yeah. The book is entitled, of course, It's on You. And you make a statement here that I think is really, really clear, because I want people to be clear on the title. You say It's on You is not a statement of blame or shame. It is one of ownership and accountability. It's about being an active participant in all aspects of what you could be better within your organization. Maybe we should just give a little time to just say, people, okay, listen, it's on you. This isn't a statement. This isn't a blame game. Maybe we should just give a little bit of a little more insight into that.
Yeah, I feel strongly in personal accountability. I mean, it's what we teach our children. It's what our coaches teach us on fields or courts of play. We are responsible for ourselves in life, no matter where we are. And that's the ticket to success and growth, positive success and growth, I think, in my opinion and in my experience. So a lot, I've heard some from a few people. It's like, wow, it's on you. That's really, that sounds like something you would say. And I take that as a compliment. It's like, well, thank you very much, because it is a statement of pure personal accountability. And the way you kick off your show is perfect with those 4 aspects, which are so important for us as human beings to take a look at. And if we are accountable to those 4 things, our life will change.
Yeah.
It's the same situation at work. If we are accountable as a CEO or leader of our organization or our department, there's going to be tests. There are going to be times where we're tired. There are going to be times that we have to put ourselves in timeout, similar to what you shared in the beginning of the broadcast today about, your experience with the person on the other end of the phone. There are times that we have to, stop ourselves and say, okay, what's going on here, Martha? What's going on here, Jay? And start again. And it's that personal ownership for awareness of ourself first, our state of being first. Then we're able to go out and teach that to the other leaders and employees in our organization. And that in and of itself is so powerful, because they see, well, they're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk.
And, thank you for segueing into the building self-awareness, because that's exactly where I was headed here next.
You're welcome.
It was where I was going, because here's what we're both coaches, we're both coaches. And I think one of the things that is lacking is our ability to be self-aware. And, Dr. Tasha Eurich did a study a few years ago on self-awareness and found that 95% of college professors felt they were self-aware, but when they were really tested out, that maybe 15% on a good day was self-aware. And so we have this false sense of self-awareness. And I would like to hear from your perspective as a CEO, developing that self-awareness, I think becomes critical to not only helping yourself be self-accountable, But I think if you're not self-aware, you don't know what you're really doing to your people.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's a gift we give ourselves, and if we, number 1, are serious about it, and number 2, we practice it daily,
Mm,
and there are dozens of books out there that teach us how to do that. It's the gift that keeps on giving, because as you also rightly said, if we're not growing, we're going backwards, and I believe that 100%. There's no status quo. There's no neutral, and it's the same thing in business, because business is just people and processes that people engineer the machines to do. There's no neutral in business, so we're either growing or we're falling behind.
mm,
And learning how to be aware of ourselves and how we show up for our teams.
mm,
There are a number of things that we can use, and one of them that I loved was the one-to-one.
mm,
And it's a sacred time that you meet with your direct report, and you have a system that you use to do it. There's organization to it, and it's that time where you are able to connect with them as a human being. They're able to connect with you as a human being. It's just the two of you. It might be on Zoom. It might be in the same office. It could be on campus. It could be on off campus, or mix it up a little bit. Keep it fresh.
mhm,
But in those moments of that formal one-to-one, we're able to ask those questions. How am I showing up for you? How am I doing? Another great tool that we can use is the company survey. We did one annually. And boy, I'll tell you what, if you really are serious about knowing how you're doing, do the company survey. But you know what? You can't grow and be afraid of it.
right, right.
You've got to be willing to put yourself out there and say, okay, I'm going to ask my company these 10 questions, and I'm gonna give them a scale of 1 to 4, so nobody can park in neutral. I'm going to get all threes, or I'm going to get all fives. That does nobody any good. So do the company survey. Show your team that you're serious about the results. I used to tee it up with an email. We're getting ready to do the survey, everybody. I'd make it fun, and then we'd send it out, and then I'd, work with my leaders, and we'd, crunch the numbers, but we would have human conversations about the results and the things that people were saying about the company. And then I would go back out. I would circle it back out with an email back out to the company saying, "Hey, here are the results. These are the things that we are working on, and these are the praises. These are the things that we're doing right." And I would publish. It was an anonymous survey, but I would publish those comments, and they were so powerful.
Mhm.
And so, there are a number of different things that we can do to check in on ourselves. We check in on ourselves by ourselves, and then we check in on ourselves through our immediate, our intimate leadership team. And then, hey, open it up for the whole company.
I think that's so important. You even give a little time in your step back moments. And by the way, I should just let everybody know that. What Martha has done in this book is that she's got these Selah moments where you step back, stop, think a little bit, reflect after you read the chapter. And then she has your basically your action step into action, where she's got a little guide where she's got several actionable steps, or few actionable steps that you can take that are based on every single chapter. And so this isn't a book that's just about I'm giving you some philosophy or some theoretical. Oh, no. She's taken the time to really think through, here are the things that you can do to get moving on that journey. And which I really, by the way, thank you for doing it. A matter of fact, I loved this chapter because when you talk about recapturing the original opportunity, I loved going back, thinking about going back and re-giving yourself that time when you first became the CEO, and step back and what did I feel? What was I feeling then? And remembering that. I just think it's so imperative and so important. There's a book out right now called The Gap in the Gain. And sometimes we have to look back and see how big of a gap that we've come and revisit those. And, because so often we're going, well, I'm not accomplishing, I'm not accomplishing, I'm not accomplishing. Look how far you've come. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that was the beauty about what you say and recapture the original opportunity. Um, her name is Martha Brown. The book is entitled It's On You. It's fantastic. Empowerment for leaders seeking the highest level of personal satisfaction and corporate success. You're listening to her here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, I want to talk to you about Zoundy. You go, who? What? Yeah, okay, listen, if you are an author or a publisher, or you work in that audiobook space, here's what I want to tell you. Zoundy helps you maximize your audiobooks reach and revenue. I use it. It's fantastic. It allows me to be in contact with the people who actually download my book, right? If I want to give my book away to, let's say I'm speaking at an event and I got 500 people, I can give away my book with special code. I've got one for LinkedIn. I've got one for Facebook where people can download the Audible book, my Audible book. It's absolutely fantastic. I love it. Listen, check it out. It's Zoundy.com. Not just Zoundy.com, but I'll tell you what, I got a special offer. If you go to Zoundy.com/J, that's JAY, and you use my code JAY25, JAY25, you'll get special savings. Check out Zoundy. You're going to be so glad that you did. I promise you will. And Linda Craft Team Realtors, listen, she's been original sponsor. Fact of the matter is, she is the leader when it comes to life transition. And I know you're saying, well, wait. They're real estate people. How can it be life transition? Think about it. Every place you've ever lived has been a transition in life. Well, they know how to take the stress out of that part of life. They've been doing it for 40 years and they stay at the top of their game and they're still doing it. So listen, when you're ready to transition in life, whether it's selling your home or buying your home, check out Linda Craft Team Realtors. It's really simple. It's lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with Martha Brown. Her book, It's On You. Empowerment for leaders seeking the highest level of personal satisfaction and corporate success. Absolutely fantastic. We're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at, surrendering to not always being right. I got to talk about that because I probably one of the things, the best gifts that my wife ever gave me was calling me out for wanting to be right all the time. All right, probably one of the greatest gifts I ever got from her. And it's hard, but you talk about a book that Patrick Lencioni said the ideal team players are three things: humble, hungry, and smart. And part of not being right is to recognize, and I know for me, it was to finally recognize that, you know what, I felt like I had to be right.
That's right.
Right. And that could be a problem sometimes for leaders, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we're problem solvers. That's how we got to the top post.
Yeah.
But if we're sincere about growing our teams, we have to let them struggle. We have to let them fall down and, bruise their knee and get back up. We are there. And we have to let them solve problems, because if they don't solve the problems, who's going to solve the problems? And then if we're not letting them solve the problems, then we're working too much in our business instead of on our business. And that's a big aha for a lot of leaders. They think, oh, well, I'm CEO, or I'm the chief something. I'm the head of this department. I'm whatever. I'm responsible. Yeah, absolutely. We can delegate tasks. We can't delegate responsibility, and we will always be ultimately responsible for the production of the company or the department. But if we don't allow our teams to grow, then we don't allow them to become their best self. That says we don't trust them. So we have to get out of our way to get out of their way to enable them to go out and produce. And I love, one of my favorite books is Extreme Ownership by Willink and Babin. And they talk about this in Extreme Ownership. And I'll never forget reading it for the first time. And it was so life-changing for me, because here I was, president of the organization. I was going to be CEO. I was, doing my MBA. Everything was coming together. And I was overworking and I was burning out and I just had to keep going. And I moved to a new state and I had all this other, stuff going on in my life. And at the same time, it's like, oh, and also, Martha, you have to let your leadership team do their job. Oh, okay. Well, again, that's another moment for reflection and self-awareness for us. It's like, well, do I trust my leadership team to do the right thing? Well, let's look at that for a minute and then break it down and see what we can get from that.
There's a couple things in here that you just said I don't want people to miss. The first is you delegate tasks, not responsibility.
Correct.
Oh, Martha. Oh, Martha. That's
you got to sit on the bench and eat your sandwich and think about it.
That's not something that's going to go well with some folks when you say that. I mean, I'm when you said it, I was like, you were a CEO.
That's
and
right.
when you gave your managers the task, they had to recognize that what you had your managers do, the manager, even at that level, has to recognize he or she is still responsible. The tasks that they give to their people, that's all they're doing. They can't shed the responsibility.
That's right.
And I think we have this idea that somehow if I assign you to something, well, then I'm done with my responsibility, even as a manager or any level of leadership.
That's right.
Not true.
Yeah, and a lot of CEOs think that they can do that with their culture as well. Can't do that with culture. I mean, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
You can do that with your culture, but guess what? It's not going to work. Right. And every business has a culture, right? Because if there's one or more person, there's going to be a culture,
whether you want it or not.
If you want an intentional culture, if you want to create a culture that's positive, based on your vision, mission, and values, then you have to own that as CEO as well. It's on you. Your culture's on you as well. But you can't expect your leadership team to go out and create the culture just by saying, okay, go out and create this culture, and I'm going to go over here and work on other things. No, absolutely not. You have to live it and breathe it every single minute of the day. And that goes back to the responsibility piece.
Which is interesting because when you talked about Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership, great book, by the way, in its own right, you brought up the piece that affected you, and you had to read it a couple times. I had to read it a couple times too, again. And that was you're as a leader, you're responsible for the losses, but your team's responsible for the wins.
Oh yeah. That's another one that people don't like.
Martha.
I know, Jay. But that's another great exercise in building trust with your team. Because nothing says I've got your back more than, hey, you know what? Great job. Let's celebrate this victory that you just produced in your department.
Yeah.
And not take all the glory, for ourselves. It's nice. We can recognize that and say, I've got, out of 5 departments, I've got 4 of them that are really working great. We're working on number 5 over here. We're working on it, but over here we've got stuff going great. I always say we. I always use we.
Right.
I don't say, my company's doing this, my company's doing that. It's a total team thing, even though I'm on the hook for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still the benefit of the whole, having the whole as a team.
You and I grew up around sports. I know you basketball was a big deal, and you got conference championship underneath your belt and the whole thing, playing basketball. But when we watch great coaches in their press conferences, isn't it true that great coaches, when it's a loss, the first thing they say is, I didn't put my players in the right position. I didn't do the things they need to do. But if it's a win, a great coach says, these guys played their tail off, or these girls, went out and executed the way that we intended them to execute the whole thing. I find it really interesting. You can always tell a great coach from an okay coach.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You know,
Same principles.
yes, it's the same rules. You have a chapter here entitled "It's All About Want to," and I'm going to
That's
say
the want
that
to. That's
want, want to,
right.
and I got to say it that way because not everybody has want to in,
Right.
in them. Um, you you say progress will always require a fuel that powers you to transform free will into willpower. The
Mm,
fuel is what I call your want to.
that's right.
And talk about where do we get want to from? Because I get this a lot as a coach. I'm sure you do too. They go where you have an executive who comes to you. Go, how do I get my people to want to? Or right? I'm sure you get it too. I get it. I get it a lot. Right? I just want my people to want to. Right?
Yeah. Well, and it's something I think it's vernacular of the Southern America, if nothing else, but probably other places in the country and in the world. The essence of it is, does that person really want to succeed?
Mm,
I mean, simply put, do they really, really want to succeed? Or are they just saying, yes, I want to succeed?
right.
There's so much to that. The
Mm,
first thing that you can do is hire a company, or bring it under in your own company. Use a personality or behavior assessment tool. So easy. You just do it. And again, it becomes part of your culture. And then you know exactly how the person's wired that's sitting across from you.
mm,
And you'll know pretty quick by looking at that what type of team player they are. What do they need? Do they need to lead, or do they need to collaborate?
mm.
And there's a number of them out there. We use predictive index, and I believe in it. We used it for decades, and it was extremely reliable. And I'm not, touting one over the other, but
Sure.
just for the conversation's sake.
I
Even
go ahead.
Well, no, all I was going to say to that point is, even though you can see how they're wired, you still need to have those conversations with them about personal responsibility. How much fire in your belly do you have? Because it's real easy to show up at work when everything's going great.
Mm.
It's much harder to show up for work when things are crappy, and that's that personal responsibility and that fire and commitment that people have. And that's basically the want to.
You know, I think oftentimes we hire talent rather than grit and determination, because you make a big deal about grit and determination. I think perseverance and resilience
Mm,
and effort and excellence and a positive attitude are three core things that are absolutely fundamentally necessary to have a great team.
yeah,
If you got people who will show up with a positive attitude regardless, if you have people who give effort because they want to be excellent, and if you have people who are resilient and they're willing to be persevering, use the word grit and determination and dedication are the three things. I think if we would hire that, you'd be a much better company.
yeah. You can train the how to,
Right, right, right.
but the
Oh,
want to, I think, people have to come with that.
yeah.
And I say that with caution, because in my experience, I've been able to coach some young folks too. Young, I mean, I'm 58. They were in their 20s or early 30s, and they so wanted to be a part of the team
Mm,
that they just needed someone to show them what resilience looks like, show them what stick to itiveness looks like, show them. And those are skills that once you teach a person that, those are life skills. Even if
mm,
people are going to part ways from us all the time. It's just part of business. It's part of life. But if you're able to give someone those building blocks that they can now take out into the world and go, and that helps them be successful, that's amazing. I mean, that's business is a noble profession, which I personally believe in that. and you're teaching someone to fish, and they can fish wherever they want to fish, and they'll never forget those lessons.
Mm. I think you have a title of your next book, and you just said it. I don't know if you realize that you said you could train your how to, but you can't train your want to.
Why do you say it like that, Jay? An overtly Southern accent.
You know what? It's something I remember hearing it when I moved here 30 some odd years ago.
Well, you're a Southerner then.
And I moved I was in Nebraska. So I moved from being on the ranches and farms in Nebraska over here into North Carolina. And I remember I was working for a Division I university here, and they said, I remember somebody in the athletic department said, you got to walk to. I just remember it.
Right, doesn't it? When you say it like that,
you know what, Jay? There's just a point in time where you just got to want to, and I've never forgotten that, and it's just always stuck with me the way he said it to me.
Yeah.
And it's because if I say want to, it doesn't just have it doesn't have the same strength or force behind it. But the way he said it to me, it was like, all right, it was a challenge, right?
Yeah.
Do I want to?
Yeah.
And it meant something more to me, I guess, with that little accent in there, because it was, is there something deep within me that even though it may not be something I like to do,
right,
I can still want to do it.
That's right. And to help especially young associates or young leaders with that, you can help them unpack that a little bit by saying, there's a reason that you're still here.
Right.
Why are you still here?
Right.
Well, I'm still here because, I believe in the company. I believe in the, I love the culture. And it's like, okay, great. And then what can you do personally to contribute to that?
Right.
Well, I can, and don't answer it for them.
Right.
Ask them those thoughtful questions, those human questions, and to get them thinking. And a lot of people have said to me, nobody's ever asked me this before. Nobody's ever wanted to spend this much, time with me before, really asking me, to dig deeper and to really think about these things.
Right. I work with young elite athletes in terms of the groups. And one of the things that we work on is resilience training. And I think there's a difference between you and I being a coach and working on someone's resilience, and you being a leader and not really having the time to work on the resilience, which is why I think we have to hire that. Because I don't think you have the time to develop it. Because can I tell you something? It's well, this, you're a coach. To develop real resilience in someone, you have to stay with them.
Yeah, you do. It's almost a daily coaching.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a daily assessment. Yeah.
Because you have to really stay with them, because until they can pick themselves up after getting knocked down, right, you're constantly picking them up, taking care of the scraped knees, say, we got this. Let's keep going. Right. We're not quitting. Right. As a leader, you don't really kind of have that kind of time, which is why, you're an executive coach and I am as well. And that's kind of what our job is to develop that.
Yeah. Yeah. And absolutely. And you want, especially at the upper levels of leadership, when I was hiring and we didn't have a lot of turnover on our leadership team, the folks that reported directly to me or to other people, in the C-suite. The times that we had were during those one-to-ones when I could, I'm there with the person and I could sense their frustration, or I could sense their exhaustion, or I could sense their hesitancy, maybe with a new idea or a new process, which we were very operationally sound organization, and that was just easy for us to, just create more processes. And that was one of the reasons that I really wanted to hone in on the people piece, because I really enjoyed connecting with people one-to-one. But to be able to sit with someone and to say, okay, well, let's just stop for a minute and let's talk to me about your ascension up the ranks, no matter whether it was here or in your previous jobs. Tell me about those moments when you were faced with something that was either perplexing or crushing, or for whatever reason you didn't think you were going to be able to do it. Talk with me about that.
Yeah.
And it gives them that space. And again, you go back and you get the opportunity to hear them talk about, well, you know what? I actually did do that. I'm like, good for you. And why is this any different? Well, I guess it's not really any different.
Her name is Martha Brown. The book is It's On You, Empowerment for Leaders Seeking the Highest Level of Personal Satisfaction and Corporate Success. Outstanding. She's great, right? Of course. You're listening to her here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, Zoundy helps you maximize your audiobooks, reach, and revenue. Author, publisher, professional in the audiobook space. Listen, from bulk orders to fulfillment options, it empowers you to leverage your audiobook to build and capture a contact list, target non-traditional channels, generate reviews, network with influencers. Listen, I'm just telling you this. It simplifies the process and unlocks opportunities. I use it. I love it. Check out Zoundy.com. Not just Zoundy.com. Go Zoundy.com/J, J-A-Y, and use the code JAY25. That's Zoundy.com/J. Use my code J25 and unlock special savings. Also, folks, Linda Craft Team Realtors. Listen, I want to just tell you something. I think it's the most comprehensive real estate website on the planet. Yeah, LindaCraft.com is the name of the website. If you haven't been there, they have what everybody else has, right? They've got, you find listings of your homes and all sorts of things. But here's some of the things that I have not found on other websites. Do you know that they asked a child psychologist to write an article on how to move with kids? Do you know that they went to a veterinarian to find out how to move with pets, right? They have all sorts of resources, vendors that they've used over the course of years that they've vetted, that have worked for them, that you have access to. Not only that, they have this great podcast that they do at the show about what's going on in the market. It's called Real Estate Right Now, but everything that's happening in the market to keep you up to date on what's going on in the market in the area. And by the way, they work with people all over the world. So listen, when you're ready to check out a great real estate website, check out lindacraft.com. It's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with my friend Martha Brown and her book. I can call you friend, can I not?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. She wasn't ready for that. It's called It's On You, Empowerment for Leaders Seeking the Highest Level of Personal Satisfaction and Corporate Success. Fabulous book. Here's an idea. If you're a parent and you have a young person who you're thinking, I wish I could get them to learn a little bit more about leadership and growth. Why don't you buy them this book, right? And encourage them to buy them. I think it's great. Here's the other thing. Do you have some emerging young leaders in your business? Maybe it's managers or other people. Why don't you, as the CEO, why don't you get them a copy of this book, right? And then, here's even a better idea. Once you get the copy of the book, you read it too. And why not have, as part of your meeting, you talk about a chapter? Because these aren't long chapters, folks. You could do, there are about 21, 22 chapters in here. And what you could do is you could do a chapter a week at your meeting for about 5 minutes and increase your growth. I just think that's an idea that I'm throwing out to. I think it would be great. Martha, I'm going to talk about this chapter called Charisma Starts, Authenticity Closes. First of all, I'm glad you talked about charisma. We don't spend a lot of time on it. We don't talk about it, but we know it when we see it.
Yeah, don't we?
So talk about charisma starts, authenticity closes.
Charisma, to your point, we don't talk a lot about it. I think we think about it. I think as leaders are climbing the ladder, they're probably hearing a little bit about it. In our age of information, I think there are a lot of opportunities to read about it. We certainly can think of leaders that we've seen or experienced that we feel like have good charisma. Coaches,
Mm.
a lot of sports coaches across the spectrum. We can think of a few that have more charisma than others. But charisma just kind of gets you into the party. You got to be able to close, you got to be able to produce. So it's really, in my opinion, it works better when they're together. And the charisma works better when it's authentic and it's centered around our deep desire to connect with another human being or human beings. Another thing that fuels charisma is just, and you'll love this one, being fired up. We're fired up about our job. We're fired up about our company. We're fired up about our leadership team. We're fired up about our employees. We're fired up about the things that make our companies great places to work. And that includes for us too. And then after, we make that connection and, we sort of show everybody, what makes us tick. We have to be able to finish the job. We have to be able to close the deal. We have to be able to produce. And so I think very, very much they have to work in tandem with each other.
I think here's the thing. And I love the way you say that charisma gets you to the party. You know what? We all love the charismatic person at the party, but there is a point that we want you to shut it off. You know what I'm saying? I know.
Talk, right? Yeah.
I know this one because I can be that person. Okay. So I know this one. Well, okay, enough's enough, Jay. You got to shut it down. But there has to be, but I think you're right. The term authentic leadership, right? Which is something that we use more so than I think we've ever used it as authentic leadership. Yeah. But I think it's that authenticity that if we're really thinking about it, when we get back to our authentic selves, and you talk about this, it's how we focus and finish.
Oh yeah. You got to go through the tape.
Yeah.
And then I think if once you show, hey, I can connect with people and I can also, finish this other stuff, then again, that's more trust building. They see you as more than just a show pony. They see you as someone who can actually, put your words into action and do what you say you're going to do.
Mm-hmm. You have a chapter here that I just thought was just such a fun, they're all fun, but this one I thought was especially fun. It's entitled, "Be a Disruptor, Not a Flamethrower." I couldn't help but laugh a little bit because I was like going, oh boy, I had some bosses who were some flamethrowers, right? And I don't know how much of it, they were disruptive, but I'm not sure they were a disruptor, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I've run into some folks over the course of my professional life and personal life that, they liked the activity of being busy, like they liked the activity of maybe creating, but also destroying, because that gave them something to do. Right. And it's great to have that kind of energy to want to, I want to create another company and I've got 3 already. And, I really want 5, 6, 7, 8, because they're the garden builders, but they're not the gardeners so much. We need both. We need to create and maintain. And some people like to do a lot of change for the sake of change. And that's a real morale buster. And it's a trust breaker. Your folks don't want you to come in every Monday morning, with the Superman, Superwoman cape on saying, I had a great idea over the weekend. I want to completely change the way we do the fill in the blank, whatever it is. And they're like, and they're probably thinking again, so it can be a little tedious. I get it. Managing business and ops and humans and personalities and all the things that we've got to juggle when we run or lead a business. But let's be strategic about change. Let's not just do change because maybe we're bored. If we're feeling bored, let's put ourselves in the chair and look at ourselves and figure out, where's that coming from, and address that within ourselves so that we can, show up for ourselves and our teams in a better way, and go produce something good, not just to produce.
I have had clients, I wonder if you have had clients too, where they don't even realize that they create chaos so they can fix it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So they don't even know they're doing it.
That's right. No, they don't.
Right. And so they become these flamethrowers where all of a sudden they're out of control.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there's chaos now
Right.
in the company. And then but it's because they want to fix the chaos.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Well, I've worked with some folks like that, and some of them got it and some of them shunned it. Because it's like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but this is really a lot more exciting for me. And I'm like, okay, well then it's about your value system. So what do you value more? Do you value your team being okay, or do you value you doing whatever you want?
Well, there's so much instability.
Absolutely.
Right.
And you're breaking those trust ties.
Right.
One person that I worked with, he did have one guy that was like stuck with him. He was like, his first lieutenant, and he's like, yeah, I love burning stuff down too, and so they just went around and they had all these companies, and there's all this stuff going on, and I'm thinking, it's just going to be the two of you after all of this is done. It's like, what are you going to do then? It's at some point there's a tipping point with this thing, and it's going to go the other way. And if you're fine with that, that's great. But that's not where I've experienced people having the most aha moments, in their careers, to say, wow, you know what, that's true. I really am. And I don't want to be mean to my people. I want to create something that lasts here. And I want to be good to people, including myself.
And it comes back to the very first thing we talked about when we started the show. And that is your own self-awareness.
Right.
Right.
Well, sometimes we don't really like what we see.
Yeah.
And that's where a coach, or a great leader can help us to say, you know what, it's okay. We're all human. We got stuff we love about ourselves. We got stuff we need to fix about ourselves. So let's dig in and fix it.
Do you know we've done our hour?
Have we?
Yeah, we've done our hour already. It's gone so fast.
Let's do another one. You want to?
I would love to do it. I've just enjoyed this. This has been so much fun for me.
I have too. Thank you, Jay.
This is so much fun. Tell people how they can get a hold of you, or how they can reach out if they want to get coaching or anything like that. How can they do that?
Yeah, Exec Coach Martha is my website. It's pretty easy to find. There's lots of links on LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn doing a lot of good stuff. The book officially launches on February the 4th, which I believe is next week.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's on you. It's on us. Come and join me.
That's
if you want to.
And there's a website there called It's On You, right? Is that correct as well?
Correct. Yeah.
That people can go to.
That's right. Yeah.
Itsonyou.com.
They're linked. So if you find me, or if you find the book title, you'll find it all together. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Martha, stay with me, please. Folks, it's the show. You know what I say to you every week, right? You're in control of three things: your attitude, your effort, and your resiliency. The fact of the matter is, I know life is not always fair, and life can deal with circumstances that we didn't choose, but you're still in control of your attitude. You choose it. You're in control of your effort, and that's tied to your excellence. And you're in control of your resiliency. And what I mean that is, we all get punched in the mouth or punched in the gut, and we all get knocked down, but it's up to you to get back up again. And we need you to get back up again. You know why? Because you're worth it. And we want you on the team. You had a lot of choices. You chose us. Thank you so much. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. And, wherever you're listening to the show, give us a positive review and a 5-star review. It just helps more people come to the show. Tell people about the show. Let them know. I think you should listen. As Maggie Dracos, MBA, says, great episode, Jay. We enjoyed tuning in. Thanks, Coach Martha. So you know what? We appreciate you. As I say to you all over the world, you know what that is. Ciao, everybody.